Hi guys, welcome back to day 23 of the 31 Days of Tarot Challenge hosted by Ethony. As always, the link for all the prompts and everything can be found in the description box below. And that will also take you to a link which will take you to her YouTube channel as well. So you can check her out and check all that out if you're not already. Although, if you're not already following Ethony in some way, where have you been? Like genuinely, where have you been? But still. So for today's prompt, we're asked, what is your most sassy deck? What is your most gentle deck? And why did you pick these decks? So I had to really think about this one because I don't, and I'm not saying that the question is necessarily saying that we should, but I don't prescribe personalities to my decks. That's just not how I view them. For me, my decks are pictures on a card, and any personality or any, you know, when I say a deck is sassy or a deck is gentle or a deck is this or a deck is that, it's not the deck that is those things. It is my projection onto that deck. I'm projecting that feeling of gentleness or that feeling of sassiness onto the deck and how it reads for me particularly. And it's all about how I'm connecting with the imagery rather than the deck actually doing anything itself. Having said that, with my first choice, it's quite interesting because it's less about how I'm seeing the cards or how the cards are depicted and more about what cards come up for me occasionally with this deck. So for my most sassy deck, which may surprise some people because they may not get the same feeling from this deck, but my most sassy deck, I've gone with the Everyday Witch. And the reason that I've picked this deck is because this is one of those decks where it can be so infuriating. It can be so infuriating. Like, I'll ask the deck, how do I achieve more balance in my life right now? And I'll get Temperance or the Two of Pentacles. I'm like, okay, so basically what you're telling me is I can achieve more balance by being more balanced, by finding more balance. That's very helpful. Thank you very much, Captain Obvious, kind of thing. Or, you know, I'll say, why am I struggling with this decision? Why is this decision so hard for me? What is my problem here? And I'll get the Seven of Cups or the Two of Swords. Again, you're struggling to make a decision because you're not making a decision. Like, how is that helpful? But it has this ability. I mean, it doesn't have this ability because I just don't think that's how tarot works. But then I have to question that when these things happen, because it seems to have this ability to kind of go, you already know the answer to this question and I don't need to tell you, so I'm not going to tell you. I'm just going to give you the card that basically says, you already know the answer to this question, why are you asking me? And that's kind of how it feels when those cards come up. It feels like it's saying, you know the answer to this question, I'm not going to spell it out for you. You need to do the work and you need to answer that question for yourself. And it feels a bit sassy in that way. The deck that I think is the most gentle deck that I own is the Spirit Song Tarot by Paulina Cassidy. And the reason I say that is because for this one, it's all down to the keywords that she's chosen for her particular cards. So some of those cards that we tend to see as more negative, she has given the most gentle, kind, positive spin on them. So for example, the Three of Feathers, which, you know, the Three of Hearts, normally the heart with the three swords in it, it's not a particularly well loved card, but she's given it the keywords release and recovery. Or the Nine of Swords, or the Nine of Feathers in this case, it's not always seen as a very positive card. When people draw this card out, it's normally because they're worrying, they're anxious, they're overthinking things. 9 times out of 10, when this card comes up, in my opinion, when it comes up for me especially, I'm not surprised to see it because I know I'm doing those things. I know I'm over-worrying, I know I'm overthinking, I know I'm over-analysing. I know those things are going on, so I'm never really surprised to see the card. But she's given it the keywords perspective and self-empowerment. I'm really sorry, the light's a bit crappy, so I don't know if you can see that. And then you've got the five of Pentacles or the Five of Crystals. Not very often seen as a positive card. It's about lack. It's, you know, it's about poverty and those kind of things. Your traditional card is your poor people outside the stained glass window in the cold weather. It's not seen as an amazingly positive card, and yet she's given it the keywords persistence and new possibilities. There's a couple more. So we've got the Tower, another one that's often quite seen as not a fun card. It's not a card that people necessarily want to get in their readings. It's a card that comes up and it worries people, and it's, you know, one of those ones that when we see it, we're a bit like, oh, really? But for her, she's given it the card words release and revelation. And the final one that, you know, I've just picked out as an example is the Five of Cups, or the Five of Shells. Like, this to me is a card that speaks to grief on a really visceral level. I mean, this was a card when my friend passed away in May. This was a card that came up over and over and over again. And I didn't really talk about that in my, you know, what card was stalking you, because it wasn't really stalking me. It just, there was a period of time when it came up and I knew why it was coming up, and it was talking about grief and loss and having to be aware that, you know, although you've lost something, there are other things that you need to be considering and be aware of that you just can't see right now. But overall, this card doesn't come up in the most positive of circumstances. But her keywords are hope and readjustment. Like, hope. That's a beautiful word for this card. It's just, and I totally see it and I totally get it. But this card, because of the keywords, just has this ability to deliver these messages, these cards that we don't necessarily want to see coming up, in a way that is encouraging, it's gentle, it's kind, it's, yes, this is a bit of a crappy card. Yes, you're going through a difficult time, but keep a bit of hope. It won't last forever, or it's a chance to readjust or reevaluate or whatever. So I think that would have to be right now the card that I find the most gentlest to work with. So those are my choices, the Everyday Witch and the, oh my God, I forgot the name of the deck already, Spirit Song by Paulina Casti. I'd love to hear what your choices are. I think this is a really interesting question as well, because as I say, I don't really give tarot cards personalities, so I think that seeing other people's choices is a really interesting insight to them as a person and how they are interpreting those decks on a real personal unconscious level almost. Thank you very much for joining me again, and I will see you tomorrow for the next one. Take care and lots of love, everybody. Bye bye.